PodJerky, bringing you an audio experience the likes of which you've never heard before.
PodJerky.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of PodJerky. I am your host, Direktor Awesome, joined once again by my lovely wife, Mrs. Awesome. Welcome, welcome.
Hello, hello.
So for the next 3 episodes, we're going to do abbreviated versions, basically just little short episodes based on some documentary reviews that we have watched over the past couple of weeks to, I say, about a month. There's 3 different ones that we're going to be doing. The first one that we're going to do today is Children of the Underground. And that was a documentary that was aired on FX. At least it was here in Canada. I'm not sure where it aired in the US, but here it was aired on FX. And this was a documentary about a woman named Faye Yager who set out to save children from abusive fathers or husbands. I guess it was the mothers and the children from abusive husbands and fathers, that they brought them into this sort of underground place to save them from these abusive relationships from these men. It was really an older kind of documentary because the footage was all from I guess the late 1980s into the 90s, of this woman who had created this whole group to find out if she could take these children and mothers away from their abusive partners. What was your take on this documentary?
It started off as her being such a martyr and such a advocate for abused children to, I think most people who are involved in a situation like this for so long went to the extreme. And so as you watch through the course of this, I don't disagree with the work that she did. I think the biggest eye-opening piece of this documentary was the fact that the law was not on the side of the children or the mother who was the parent, I should say, but mostly mothers, who were trying to get these children out of these crappy situations. Right. That was probably the most eye-opening, literally documentation after documentation, doctors' exams, reports of rape of small children. And they were like, nope, it's fine. Go back.
Yeah.
The father's a great guy. Don't,
And that's what the law said. They saw her as a vigilante.
They did.
They saw her.
Effectively, she was a vigilante.
Right. Yeah, and they saw her as kidnapping these children.
Yeah.
Because they were taken away from the father, who still had parental rights in the eyes of the law.
Correct.
They went through all of these family court cases, and unfortunately, these kind of cases end up in family court. And we did hear from a judge. She was a family court judge that she usually adjudicates court cases like this. And she did a lot of Faye Yager's cases. And she actually agreed most of the time with the father's side. Just according to the law. I don't know if deep down personally she felt that she agreed with.
Well, she didn't, right? She apologized at the end of the documentary to all the families where she had wronged.
Did she have a change of heart later on down the road? Or
maybe
at the time, did she feel deep down that she was making a bad decision? But according to the law, she actually had to abide by the law and give the father the parental rights still. Like you said, with all of this documentation from doctors and all these paperwork that there was abuse going on in social workers and all this stuff, the parent, the father, was still allowed to have visitation rights. And you saw on numerous occasions that the father would continue abusing the child when they had their visitation at their place or at the park, or wherever it was where they were. They were still continually either verbally or sexually or whatever it was, they were still abusing these children. And that's why Faye Yager kind of created this underground network of things. And you go through the documentary, and it's a 5-part series. It's 5 episodes.
Probably doesn't need to be.
No, you could have probably done this in about 2 episodes.
Yeah.
They dragged a lot of this stuff on.
But I mean, you got to figure it's a 25 year span of the work that she did, right?
Right. So while you're going through this documentary, you see like how intricate this is, like how intricate the network is, because you have people that are offering to go pick up the mom and the child and drive them to these secret locations. You have them, other people that are going to like buy food and bring food over to the place that they're staying. And you have people
who get them new identification, new driver's license and birth certificates. The birth certificate one freaked me right out.
Yeah. And none of these people knew each other. These were all like people that were like strangers
heard
to
about
each other
and
started to
their name
out.
to help. Yeah.
Right. And it just, this whole documentary kind of shows, I guess, what kind of problems there are in the justice system. It's difficult to, again, like we've mentioned already, like, I don't know, it just baffles my mind. And there is a lot of laws that happen like this that are just, head scratchers, that why are they like this? Why are these laws not meant to protect the victim, where they're meant to protect the person who's doing the harm?
Yeah. And then I think there were some cases where the fathers had been acquitted and they were actually not guilty too. So they did show the flip side of this, where there were wives who wanted to leave for whatever reason and took the children, and the fathers were literally hunting these kids down. And one so far has actually took her to court. I don't know if it ever said that he won or not. But he took her to court and sued her for all the crap she basically put him through.
Well, I mean, there was the one guy in the documentary that you find out, he was a multimillionaire who had his children taken away, and he used all of his resources. He had resources all over the place to be able to find Faye Yager, find out where this location was where she was keeping people. He was wrongfully accused of something. And I guess that's the flip side of things, right? Like, do you just believe automatically? Do you believe the mom and the daughter if there's no documentation? There was no doctor's report. There was nothing. That the woman just wanted out. And this was her way out, because I think in the documentary, it showed a few of them that was the case. That
particular case where the father hunted them down, I say hunted, that's not a terrible word, but it's effectively hunted them down. It was the mother that was abused, not the children. And so his focus solely was in getting the children back. I think he could have cared less about what happened to his wife. But it got so bad that they were actually starting to hide people in Europe.
Yes.
Because they had, like, their network was getting found out. The FBI was tracking them, and all this stuff was happening here in the States, that they ended up having to actually hide people across Europe, where they were allowed to wherever they could do it without breaking laws.
Yeah. And there was the one girl that they sent out to Europe. I don't remember if she was part of this whole story. But
he was the main one.
It was a fabricated story, right? It wasn't.
Oh, no, that one wasn't.
That one.
There was no fabricated stories in here, other than a couple of the cases where the kids had said they were abused when in fact they weren't. There was a lot of the documentation around it gets so as the documentary goes on, at first, I would say for the first few episodes, you're like, oh, she's doing the most wonderful thing. And she's, she's really helping these women, regardless if officially they were breaking the law, but really she's doing the right thing for these mothers and children. And then all of a sudden you start to hear about some of the techniques and some of what she thought were therapy or questioning of some of these kids. And then there was this whole like a cult, devil worship thing that ended up coming out, that those were the ones where it ended up being fabricated, because the kids ended up just telling a story to try and
stop the verbal
stop
abuse,
the questioning. And
because the questioning came off as a verbal abuse.
Holy crap, did it ever?
Yeah,
which she was tried for. Like she went to court for it.
Yeah, because you saw the video of her like yelling at the kids and berating the kids.
Yeah.
And the kids were very frightened, scared, whatever. And
so they made up stories to appease her. It doesn't. So here's the tricky part, because at this point now you don't know if the kid was abused and just the occult devil worshiping side of it was the part that was incorrect. Because all of a sudden she had this whole thing where it was the devil's inside of him, that like, this is what it's happening. And she took I think we've seen it in a couple of other documentaries, when people are so focused on one thing, one train of thought, always trying to prove that the victim is right and that the abuser, like the accused, is wrong. You almost like you put up roadblocks. You don't see past the thing that you believe in. And that to me is kind of where I lost sympathy for her towards the end. Although the work was important, she had such blinders on that she could no longer see that she was crossing lines. And I think ultimately that was probably her downfall. Although she did a ton of wonderful, great things, she just almost cuckoo. I know that's probably not the right term, but that's the way it came across. She was just so tunnel visioned, I think is the right word.
Yeah. And like I've always said this, I have no time for child abuse. I have no time for spousal abuse. I have no time for that. Like I've told you multiple times, if I ever saw that happening outside, I'd knock people out. But the way she went about certain things, like we've mentioned already, she did break the law. She did certain things. But again, the flip side again here is like the law is not
justice.
Right.
The tough one.
The law is not on her side to help, the victim here. And there are a lot of cases that go, how many times have we seen it? We've seen in the trials of Gabriel Fernandez, where there was multiple times where there's been reports that the child was being abused and assaulted and beaten and wasn't taken, and the child ends up dead. Yeah. And then they go back and they say, we have to change the law. So why did it take a death to change the law?
Right.
Again, this is American law. This isn't Canadian law. We're talking about American law.
I don't know that it's much different here, to be honest with you.
I can't really tell you. I'm not a law student. Try to keep up with.
If you are, let us know.
Yeah. I try to keep up with certain rules here and certain things that happen. But, it's just most of the documentaries that we watch are American made. So it's very hard to know what the difference is between what our law is and what their law is, and probably should do a little bit of research on that just to see what it is. But one of the things that in this documentary that I kept commenting on while we were watching it, was the news outlets and the amount of times the news outlets had called this the Underground Railroad. And I kept on commenting on that and saying, what a slap in the face. Like, this is nothing to do with the Underground Railroad. And they just kept saying it. And I don't know if anybody caught that. I don't know if anybody has commented on that. I haven't seen anything on message boards or anything like that, but you're comparing a slavery movement here where they were, Harriet Tubman's involved. There's a whole bunch of other characters like that are key players that were involved in this Underground Railroad. And they're calling this the Underground Railroad, which is way far from it. You got to remember the 80s and
90s,
right? We
didn't recognize
a lot of
these things, right? Or we weren't conscious of the political statement as much as we are now.
Yeah. So, it really bothered me when they just kept referring to it as, and I was like, again, there they are again with this Underground Railroad. And you can't be saying that kind of stuff, because one has nothing to do with the other, and one has significantly more importance in world history than
historical movement.
Yeah. That, has nothing to do with this. So that kind of turned me off a little bit of it. Is there anything else that you want to comment on this documentary?
It's definitely worth watching, if just from, it's such an eye-opening documentary around some of the things that happened, as well as I'm sure in some states probably still very much is happening. Yeah, it was good. I mean, again, it didn't need to be as long as it was.
Yeah, I recommend it because I think that the story was interesting.
The topic is important.
We have blinders on as well.
Yeah.
Because we live a pretty simple life. We live a pretty good life.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see this kind of stuff happening in front of us. So we kind of have those blinders on, not intentionally, but I mean, that's just the way humanity works. So when we see stories like this, it kind of opens our eyes to think, you and I kind of live in this little bubble, you more so than me. But we think that human beings can't be this evil. But
I like to think that people are better than they probably are.
Yes. And I have that kind of thing where I think, I know people can be this evil, but I don't see it. So it's not happening around me, which is not the right, way to look at things. But that's just humanity. That's just the way our brains operate. And that's just the way things work. Right. So it was an eye opener of a story. It is an interesting story, an important story to watch.
Mm-hmm.
However, again, if you want to watch this, it's 5 episodes, which are, I believe, an hour long each. Which again was a lot of information to take in that we didn't need to take in. So just make time for the 5 hours because there's a lot of filler in there that probably didn't need to be said. But yeah, definitely worth a watch if you're looking for a documentary to watch. Is that it for you? Is that all you want to say about it? All right. So we're going to end this episode here. This was for Children of the Underground, airing on FX. It is available now. All 5 episodes have been aired, and it is done. So you can go and check that out. You can find PodJerky on Instagram and Twitter at PodJerky. You can always find all of our links on our link tree. That's linktr.ee/PodJerky.
Here we go now. PodJerky.